Well, hello, everyone, for another episode of REKT Vision. Another lovely day with Bitcoin above 100K. We are close to all-time highs. There were a couple of pretty nasty wicks down to around 90K this week. I think we've had two of those in the last 10 days, but we are now settling above 100K. Funding is low. They've had 2 billion of inflows into the ETH ETF over the last 10 days. You've had 11 days of straight inflows into the Bitcoin ETF. It's all looking pretty good, I would say, OSF. How are you feeling?
I really like that intro. You had a very soothing voice. It sort of reminds me of like listening to classic FM.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to audition for from the start.
Yeah. Or even Jazz FM. Could have even Jazz FM, like one of those
late
two.
night jazz as we go above 100K.
Yeah, it had exactly that vibe.
Like let the tone just continue a little bit too long. You linger on each one. Anyway, let's get back to regular scheduled programming. How are you feeling about the market?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, the December rally, as we predicted and hoped for, is underway. It's funny because I just think, Bitcoin's above 100K right now. Lots of meme coins and the billions of dollars market cap. Even altcoins have started to rally. Yeah, everyone still seems so unsatisfied. And everyone's like, "Oh, we're just waiting for that this big moment, the big breakout." So I just wonder sometimes, like, have we had it? Is this it? Like, is there more to come? I mean, I do think and believe there's more to come, but yeah, just doesn't matter like how high we get to on Bitcoin. People just still seem unsatisfied, and I personally think that's a sign of perhaps positioning in terms of Bitcoin versus alts. And I think maybe if we see Bitcoin dominance drop to like 50 or 45%, with Bitcoin still above 100K, that's when I think you start to see people getting like super happy. And that's kind of where I feel like we're at right now.
I think people have made money this cycle for sure, right? If you're in Bitcoin, you made money. If you were in ETH, you made money. If you're in Solana, you made money. And if you're in alt, you made money. I think some of the Solana ecosystem, which was really hot, that faded because altcoins took over, right? We had this like rotation away from some of the left curve meme coins to dino coins, altcoins, which all pumped. And then now it feels as though we've had like a slight, that those have stopped pumping a little bit. And then people have looked for more of the other left curve stuff happening. So I would agree with what you're saying to a certain extent. It does feel like some of the people that maybe who are on CT every single week, they haven't had the best last month. I think a lot of them have actually maybe even retraced a lot of the gains that they initially had. And that's largely because I think a lot of people were in the Solana ecosystem, and Solana ecosystem coins didn't have the best month. But I think that is starting to change, it feels like right now. But I would agree with you. I also think you should be wary, right? Like if Bitcoin could easily go to 90K again. It's done that twice. And some of these coins can be down a lot. So I'm very, very wary of that. I have said, when I think to be the most wary, which is probably about 4 weeks from now. But I think we've probably got a little bit more juice in it until then. Around the inauguration, I'll be reducing. But yeah, I would definitely be wary of that sort of sentiment too, in that people are in the greed bit of the market, even though they're probably maybe even up. They're like, oh, this person made some crazy amount. I need to have made that amount, or I've been a failure this cycle. And you forget how hard it is to make money in a bear, So it's a period of abundance, but it's not. It's obviously a bit more spread out, and I think people were expecting it to just be on their bags, and that's been a bit more different. Is that how you would read it as well?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's probably right, and I think it's also a function of like at what point in the cycle did you enter or put on a large amount of risk. And something that's notable, I think, in the last few weeks since Trump's victory is that we've had a big retail influx. We've had people wake up and re-enter the market. Maybe that partially explains the move in the dino coins. So, if you've just come back having been off for 2 years, or if you've just entered crypto, you may not have made these crazy gains that some other people have made, and so you need a bit longer to to feel to be and feel happier, I think. So there's probably an element of that too, I think. This kind of feels like, to me, the point at which I entered crypto in 2021, where it's like, oh man, I wish I owned this stuff from a year ago when these guys got at crazy valuations, and now I feel like I'm playing for like a 3 or 5x rather than like 100x like these guys managed to get.
Or even a 2x for some of these things. It feels like you're hoping for like the last bits of the pump. I think will be a very similar sort of move here, where we will get, it won't be the end of the cycle, but I think we're going to get a period where a lot of that gets flushed out, just like we had in 2021. And then we probably hit an all-time high later in 2025, in my opinion. Like, I think we are going to get like some big flushes in Q1. And I have no idea what will cause it. I'm just telling you that I think that's how it will play out as well, because you see people coming in and that you're not too sure like how far along they're chasing those gains. And yeah, they need to lose a little bit of money first.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go through the majors, because it has been an interesting week, I think, for like, I guess XRP has now flipped Solana. So technically that is also one of the main majors, but we'll start with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's had a very strong period too, continues to see massive inflows. Obviously, a lot of underpinning of this is all the Bitcoin reserve stuff that we're hearing from the US. We had Russia, we had Brazil, we've had a number of other countries and even states in the US mention Bitcoin reserves. We had a little bit of a dip, levered takeout on no real news, but we went down to like 90 to 93K a few times. And then after that all got cleared, we went back up to around 101-ish right now. Feels like we're knocking on the door to go even higher today. So a good week if you've just been in Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominance had hit a low of like 54%, I think, and then it rebounded to like 57, and then now it's kind of around 56. So it gone a lot lower on the rally and all these Dino coins, and then it's kind of come back slightly. What's your view on Bitcoin dominance here, just to start? At 56K, are we going higher or lower, you think?
I think we will probably go lower. I think with Bitcoin north of 100K, it's at a point now where if the market keeps sending, so to speak, I think Bitcoin dominance starts to drop. We say this every time, the sort of like thing to look out for is strategic Bitcoin reserve. And if you get the US buying Bitcoin and you get other sovereign nations buying Bitcoin, I think that's the sort of thing that could keep Bitcoin dominance very high and very sticky. But until that is like actually affected, provided the market remains strong, my gut is Bitcoin dominance continues to fall towards 50%. And I think that comes as a result of alts starting to rally. Like, I think we're going to have this big like January rally as well. I think as people load up on risk, and people will just look, just the average person who's not deep into crypto will come in, or even people who are deep into crypto will come in and be like, okay, cool. Let's see what's happened in previous cycles. Bitcoin leads the move. It always happens right after halving. Bitcoin dominance goes very high. And then what's the next thing that happens? It's the alt season. And I think people were hoping for that last year, but maybe it was just too early. And we've seen Bitcoin dominance go to north of 60% like it did last time. And we've seen it starting to drop. And I think people will now start thinking, is there a chance that we get a real alt season where it drops, into the 40s? When's the right time to put that trade on? It feels like January, as people get bulled up and you have the calendar effect and people have risk they can deploy. It feels like that might be a good time to put that trade on, I think. So my bet is that we continue to fall. And I do think we start to see alts rally in January. I think memes will do well as well, but I do think alts can really catch up. Again, I always say this, I still don't have enough conviction to like buy alts, but that's what I think will happen. And I guess you can say it's an honest opinion because I don't even have the risk on. So
if you bring up a Bitcoin dominance chart, like we did really break basically a trend line, which was all the way since 2022. pretty aggressively. So I think, yeah, like it does feel like that could be, we head back down to like 50, 54. We said before, that we thought it would go to like 54 to 57. We're now at 50, 56. I'm now of the view, yeah, like you, that it feels as though retailers come in, and I think it's going to be a bit more similar to previous cycles. So we're kind of going to go down to like a 54 area, in my opinion, maybe 53. The main thing that's really changed there as well is ETH. So ETH has had a very, very strong period here, from being very underloved, and we've said it on the show, like underused really to a certain extent. What you've seen here is actually what a lot of people said, including yourself. Institutional demand has come back very, very strong. So yes, we're probably going to get an ETF for Solana, for Ripple, for tons of things. It feels like very, very soon. In fact, a lot of them were even filed over the last few weeks. But ETH currently has one, and we've seen 2 billion of inflows into that ETF, which is an ETF which nothing was really going on in for a long time over the last 10 days. ETH or Solana here, or ETH or Bitcoin even? Do you think ETH is the one to own?
I think ETH's going to come back. Like, I think I've sort of had this view for the past few weeks, and we have seen a move. We saw ETH BTC bottom at like 0.033 or whatever it was. ETH has obviously done pretty well in the last few weeks. I think it's going to come back. ETH ETF, like we had this conversation maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was like, we have Bitcoin ETF, the only other ETF you have is the ETH ETF. And I know there's talks of a Solana ETF, but we all know how long it takes to get that thing, from conception to it actually starting to trade. So I just think the ETH ETF could be like the catch-up trade of next year, where people miss Bitcoin and they think, oh, now I can buy ETH. Again, you can look at the ETH BTC chart and see how far off the highs it is. Just has a lot of things going for it, I think, whereas previously it didn't. So I do think ETH can outperform versus Bitcoin. Do I think ETH outperforms Sol? That's a tougher question. It's really moved a lot, actually. I just looked at Sol ETH now. Sol ETH hit highs of like 0.072 or something. It's 0.056 now. So that's a big outperformance of ETH versus Sol in just the last 2 or 3 weeks, I guess.
It's come back a lot. I think the Bitcoin one is a really interesting one, because I think that's the one that people look at the most. And obviously that chart looks horrific. And it's been a graveyard trade to go after it. That being said, I always said, ETH outperforming Bitcoin, you'll always get a chance to get in. I never felt like, oh, it's going to run away from me one day and I'll never be able to get into ETH. I look at this chart and I feel like it's at that point. This is your chance to get in. If you believe that this is the time that ETH BTC is going to reverse, it feels like this is the moment. That's my general sense. So I kind of agree with you that I've considered moving some of my Bitcoin holdings back into ETH here. Like, obviously I missed the complete lows, which was like 0.33. But now we're at 0.38, and it was, even just this time last year, it was almost double that. It feels as though that might not be the worst trade here. I'm kind of in your camp there. So definitely, and maybe let's move on to the Solana stuff and talk about that separately, because I think Solana Sui is also something that Raoul's been talking about a lot. If you're going after, let's say, the more stable majors, ETH and Bitcoin seem there. Solana and Sui, and maybe even we'll talk about XRP, but I'll focus on Solana and Sui here. Sui's obviously had a good week. Solana's been slightly underperforming. What of those two do you think? Like, one of the major trends that we've seen over the last month has been the rise of AI and AI agents and people being able to do stuff on chain. There has been some light thud about Solana, and that a lot of the apps are built on closed source tech rather than open source, and a lot of these it might be more difficult for some of the AI to interact with it, even though a lot of the AI stuff is going on Solana that's been talked about. Whereas Sui has been seen as this better chain for it. I haven't seen anything happening on Sui with respect to AI agents. But do you think there's what would you rather be in there out of Sol and Sui?
I think if you want to go risk on, I would say Sui. It feels like this year was the year for Sol and Sol ecosystem, and I think people are now probably, you benchmark yourself to Bitcoin, then you benchmark yourself to ETH, and you benchmark yourself to Sol, and I think a lot of people will be wanting to outperform Sol next year. That being said, as you said, there's nothing going on Sui. Like maybe there's some meme
Well, there's some
coins.
stuff, but it's more it feels more B2B.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, exactly. Right. There's no like degen stuff going on Sui, casino like stuff going on Sui, I guess is what I would say. Like there's some meme coins. There's like been a bit of action in Sui NFTs. But nowhere near to the activity levels we saw with regard to meme coins and Solana. So that either means it's really early still for Sui and it's a good point to get in, or it won't take off. I don't know. Like I don't know what it is, but I think I would rather own Sui than Sol here, like for choice,
That's the
as
thing. It does feel
someone
like
bullish
that,
into
doesn't it?
next year.
It does feel a little bit like that. And I trade on Sol every single day and I do everything on there, but it just knowing what I've just seen, which happens with the Dino alts,
Yeah.
it matters. Like what you actually sometimes want to own at this point is the under-owned asset. And it feels like Sui is less mainstream at this stage than Solana, obviously. Everyone owns Solana. Everyone's been trading on it. And could I see Sui really rip from that level? It just broke us. This was a pretty good chart from Raul I saw in the week. I'm starting to think that also Sui is a better trade. We've spoken about Sol obviously having these unlocks in January, whether that's a big deal or not. Like it's a narrative. I am also wary on Solana being the outperformer here. Although I do think a lot of the ecosystem coins can do really well.
Let me put it this way: like this time last year, if you asked people in crypto how much do you use ETH and how much do you use Sol, most people probably told you I use ETH like every day, and I've either never used Sol or I've just used it a little bit. Maybe not December last year. Maybe let's say like November or October. Now, if you ask everyone the question this year, it's like the answer you're going to get is probably I barely use ETH anymore. I use ETH a little bit, but I use Sol a shitload. And so, with that in mind, like, do you want to end up by would you rather buy Sol now at 220, or would you rather have bought it last year at like 80, or even before at like 8? And there's that argument could perhaps extrapolate to, could be transitive perhaps to Sui. So maybe this time next year we're all using Sui. I don't like, who knows, right?
It does. And just doing that analogy you mentioned of 2021, like people coming in here. Do you remember when we first came in, people talked about ETH? They were like, oh, I was buying ETH at $100. And we were like, it was trading at like just over 1,000 or something like that. And we were like, oh God, we're so late. I think that's the case with Sol to a certain extent. Like everyone, if you're coming in here, you know that people are up so much on Solana. And I feel like Sui could be, and at that stage, then Solana went from, what was it, like 5 to 200? Even with very limited stuff going on there. It feels like Sui, I don't think is going to have that strong an adoption, but it does. You have to be cognizant that even if you are so bullish on Solana, it is up over like 15x basically since the lows last year. It's up a lot, and I think you have to be aware that like the trade is not done, but it's going to be. There's a lot of people in it who are up a lot, and it doesn't necessarily lend itself to like pumponomics, I would say, at this stage of the cycle. So I'm a bit more wary on it. I'm not bearish, but definitely more wary on it out of the other ones. And that's what we've been seeing. It just hasn't performed like the other ones over the last week or so. And we said, December time, be wary on Sol. I'm going to stick to that and say people will be scared about the unlocks in January. So it feels as though after that discussion, I'll throw in XRP there. Are you bullish on XRP? It's God candled, done a 5x, very different sort of coin to the others. I don't know if you've ever really considered buying it, but out of Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, Sol, and Sui, pick two. Who are your two there? It felt as though we just decided that it probably would be ETH and Sui for the next month.
For me, ETH and Sui. XRP, like amazing move higher, and I think we've had a lot of people ask us about XRP since we started doing this and all our various Real Vision stuff, and I have to say congrats to anyone who held on to it, because it's definitely not one that I would have touched at all. But I think that's probably a testament to like how strong the XRP army is. Like I think XRP is sort of like a cult coin or a meme coin. Like you have people in it who are just like really, really diehard XRP holders, and that I think is a very bullish thing for the coin. But yeah, that's not going to be for me. I wouldn't put it in the same category as like these other L1s. Just put it into its own thing. I wouldn't be surprised if it did really well next year. I honestly wouldn't. But yeah, just not really one for me, I think.
Okay. All right. So there we have it in terms of the L1s. I think the next biggest thing to kind of talk about is what's been the hottest narrative for a few weeks now, which has been AI. Something that I've kind of dove headfirst into. You have been a bit more cautious. There's been some. It just continues to dominate in terms of mind share here, which is the AI and AI agent coins. Have you had any sort of a change in heart about these things, like the growth in them, or what's your view on them here?
I think you can't really deny the mind share it takes up right now. Like it started out as AI meme coins, and now it's just its own whole like sector really. And you just look at some of these volumes, look at some of these market caps things are at, and you had some big movers in the past few days, like Griffin and Fartcoin and AI16Z, etc. So I think it's not to be faded, and I think it's not that it's too big to fail, but it's too big to really ignore anymore. I think like it will continue to persist, but I still have a hard time really knowing or understanding or getting what to buy within these coins. Like apart from GOAT, and the logic I would apply there is just it was the first, so it's not even like AI logic I'm applying there. Apart from that, and that's that's already at like 750 million market cap, so it's already trading at very high FTV. It's hard to really know what to buy, and sometimes you get a cool agent, or you get these bots that will put on their own positions and do well and all that kind of stuff, and I get all that, but it's just like, what's to stop there being a new one next week? And how do you really judge it? And I guess you can ask the same thing. You could ask the same question for the meme coin market. You could have asked the same question for the NFT market in 2021. Like, there's so many different meme coins. How do you truly know which one to buy and which one is going to become viral and stuff? But I think with memes, for me, it's like, well, I know if something is funny because it makes me laugh. I know if something is iconic because I see the mind share for it. Like I know if something has a cultural impact because I feel it. And I just use sort of like my subjective like mind to decide that. And if I like it, I'll buy it. If I don't, I won't. With AI, it's a bit harder because you're adding in these different things. I just don't know, like, how do I compare I don't know, Fartcoin to Cerebro to Memes AI to Griffin, like to Pulse, like to Bully, like how do you compare all these coins, and what makes one more desirable than the other, away from just like people pushing positions in bags and stuff?
Yeah, there's been a return to utility to a certain extent, I think, and that in some ways that makes stuff a little bit more complicated to value. And there's also often like a mix of utility plus meme sometimes. But we'll break it down a little bit, because there's like two main areas which are showing strength, I think, at the moment. And one is we obviously started with GOAT, which we've mentioned a few times on the show, which is a couple months ago. A AI researcher created an agentic bot essentially which had its own X account, which started posting about different memes. It got obsessed with a meme called the Gospel of Goatsy, or it created its own like religion around that meme almost. And then a meme coin was created, it adopted it, and it started promoting it, and that became the GOAT coin. Since then, a lot of other agents have come in. Originally, we just saw coins related to those agents. So we had things like, in that sort of bracket, we have Cerebro, which kind of made a rap album. We have AIXBT, which kind of gives you alpha. That's gained like 100,000 followers. Gives you like crypto alpha. You've had like Bully, like you mentioned, which is more like a reply guy bot, which got a lot of attention. And then since then, we've kind of moved on to more like infra style stuff. So the big movers this week have been Virtuals, which is one of the marketplaces for these bots, which is on Base. That hit an FTV today of around $2.5 billion. Been easily the biggest mover out of the top 1,000 coins over the last month. And then you've had AI16Z, which is a DAO, which is trying to be the first AI hedge fund, but also separately created an open source framework called ELIZA, which has been the number one trending thing on GitHub over the last month globally. Like, this is the number one thing out of all software. This is the trending thing on GitHub. So, and there's been some hope that can somehow be related back to the AI16Z DAO. AI16Z hit $1 billion this week. Virtuals hit $2.5 billion. A lot of this is a little bit like you said, like, number one, the barriers to entry can be very low. We're seeing new coins come out each week around that infra stuff as well, just like with the bots originally. So it's difficult to underwrite whether something's going to be here in a month or so. And I would say the second thing is there's a little bit of attachment of like, why do you need a token for these sort of things? Like with a meme coin, it's a meme, right? With a lot of these, it's like, well, we're going to define the utility of the coin at some stage in the future, or it might not be slightly directly related to what we want it to be related to, but it will be at some point in the future. And I think there's a little bit of that sort of little bit of that going on. But these coins are running. These coins are running like meme coins, even these AI infra coins. We have coins that have gone up. Graphane, which was a coin which was trading at $4 million a week ago, is now trading at $350 million. And that's because it was tweeted about by the Solana team. Graphane is almost has like a chat GPT sort of interface for AI agents doing stuff on the blockchain. And so a lot of these sort of plays are running up. I don't know if they'll always be there, and the life cycle of those coins can be a bit meme-like in that they come crashing back down or they don't have residual value after a while. But it's definitely where people are throwing money at the moment. And then separately, you have the memes, which is kind of what Fartcoin has been, and Goat, which is really only related, or at least the major ones are only really related to the Truth Terminal, which was this original bot that came in and is kind of like this meme lord who've come in and spawned two tokens now, which are running into the hundreds of millions. One of them is Goat, which was the original one and the one that it kind of tweets about a lot. And the other one is Fartcoin, which people may have heard about because it's kind of gone mainstream, right? Like, this thing got tweeted about by Mark Andreessen. It got tweeted about by StockTwits. It got tweeted about by a range of different TradFi accounts, basically mocking the idea that Fartcoin was going so high while they're all investing in like stocks and bonds. And this thing went to 750 million today. So two of these coins, which are both kind of meme-like, I personally think that you should be investing in that. Like, that feels like it's down your sort of road. This reminds me of the NFT cycle so much, in that a lot of people are fading it. Like, it's a new meta. It's quick. It's fast. Like, no one can be bothered to do the research. There's a lot of scamming going on. There's also a lot of like crazy blue sky sort of estimates for how high things can go. You know, we're changing the world, all that sort of, but at the same time, it's very related to a very, very big bullish trend of AI in TradFi, which I think is going to keep it sustained. I guess you have said, yeah, you might look at Goat, but it's obviously high. But I don't know. For me, I think this is where people are going to be spending their money right now. It feels as though a lot of actually the traditional means have been difficult to sustain good price action, even on good news, because there's been so much rotation into this sort of these sort of narratives.
Yeah, I do see it. I think something like Fartcoin, for better or worse, feels more accessible to many people, and I think you're going to see a lot of headlines of like mainstream and you're already asking mainstream headlines on Fartcoin, and they probably don't even know it's an AI coin. I think it's just like, this thing called Fartcoin is now worth more than whatever it is, like a third of the American companies or something, the market cap of a third of American companies, something like that. So I do see it. I just feel like I've missed it. Like I feel like I'm the type of person who gets big into trades when they're like 50 to 100 mil market cap, maybe 50 to 150 in this market. And I think when something is like at 500 to 1 bill, I've just never done well on buying anything in that range ever. The only thing I would have done well is like
you could buy some of the new coins.
So you could get involved in the new coins, but then I just don't know what I'm looking at.
I mean, you can buy some of the new coins though.
But it feels like you're buying betas there rather than buying the alphas. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's probably fair. Like you are by nature, you're buying a catch-up trade at this stage. It feels like, but for the infra stuff,
which can work. That's not a bad strategy. Like you can make money that way for sure. So
yeah, like these coins are moving like meme. These coins are 10xing, 100xing in a week. There are big catch-up trades, but you have to, it is a bit of a lottery with some of those. There is a lot of these different coins which are trading in the tens to 50 millions, and their AI researchers that have come in, and then maybe they release a new feature and it just goes absolutely nuts. And I don't know if they're even investable at any of those sort of price points, because somebody else can come in and, like you said, just release the same feature next week. And it's I'm seeing a little bit of that. Like Zero Bro was the most spoken about token probably a couple of weeks ago, and now there's like 5 different things people trying to do what Zero Bro is doing. And similarly, Bully and a few of these other ones, they kind of feel as though they're just there's just new coins. There's new coins with new shiny things happening each week, and it's tough to hold on to them. So I think the trade really is you can trade just the hype cycle to a certain extent if you're really looking to do it. There are a lot of those which you can trade from like 50 to 500 million, and it's taking a lot of the attention away from the memes that were doing that before. Like the memes that we spent on this show, things like you would trade like a Lucy before, or Luce up to like 200. That sort of stuff isn't happening with memes right now. I don't know if you've noticed, but like that, those plays aren't happening. They're all in the AI sector. So it feels as though if you were doing that before, as in trading a coin from 5 to 200 million, you're kind of just drawn to the AI space right now. Albeit, I think the returns are probably similar to like if you were trying to do that in meme coins. Like there's a lot of difficult things to overcome, and they can get outcompeted very, very quick on the back end. So, but definitely to pay attention to. A lot of this is happening on Solana. That's where the majority of the coins are coming. You're also seeing a lot of this on Base. That's where Virtuals, which is now the number one coin in the space, is based. Although a lot of that activity on Virtuals has actually dropped off. I am slightly surprised it's continued to go up to like 2.5 billion, but it's done very, very well. So that's where the left curve stuff is happening right now. Meme coins, even with good news, I'm finding it difficult to make money. Like it's like, oh, it's a good piece of news, and then it gets sold straight back down to where it was. It's kind of a little bit difficult, but there have been some winners, I guess, and things like Mog had a good Coinbase listing. I think some of the Pepe had a good. The ETH memes have done slightly better. I think there. I think the other main thing that maybe listeners would be interested to hear about is the rise back of NFTs. NFTs have come roaring back. So, and this has mainly been led by a Pudgy Penguins token, which has been kind of following in the footsteps of the REKT token, you might say. But Pudgy Penguins have gone above $100,000. They flipped Bored Apes comfortably by about Bored Apes were at 70K, Pudgy Penguins at 100, and all the major NFT projects are probably up another 2x on the week. It's been a pretty crazy period here for NFTs. What's your view there? Are you more attracted to get back into NFTs a little bit here?
I think there's quite clearly a premium for NFTs that haven't yet launched tokens. And if you look at where the volume and price action has been, it's been in Pudgy Penguins. They've announced the Pengu token, and it sounds like there's no snapshot. You can just claim the token on the day if you own a penguin. So the whole Pudgy ecosystem, like Pudgies, Little Pudgies, Pudgy Rods have been doing well. Zuki has been doing well. They've announced anime coin, so that's coming at some stage. Doodles has been doing very well as well. I think there's a lot of speculation on Doodles potentially bringing a token. Meanwhile, apes have done okay, but they haven't. They've sort of been underperforming versus the others. So yeah, it's just like if you want to play the whole buy this NFT, get the token, and have some residual value in the NFT trade, I think that's kind of like on right now. I also think independently of that, NFTs are just doing well anyways. Like I think ETH is doing better. We've had just like the longest consolidation period ever for NFTs, and we've broken out of it a couple of times. So I'm like relatively bullish on NFTs. I think so you've had like 2 or 3 different new mints recently that have done really well. Like one, I can't remember. There's a gaming one that came which minted at like 0.2 ETH and is now north of 2 ETH or something like that. Like, so stuff is doing well. I think people are kind of like starting to feel more comfortable putting capital back into that market. It really is. The thing with NFTs is because you had this like big down period for such a long time, and then meme coins really took off. It was really hard to like put money into NFTs when you could just like have a really good chance at multiplying that money in the meme world. But with everything happening in meme coins right now, as you mentioned, if you are just playing for like a 2 or 3x or 5x in like the big cap stuff, maybe NFTs look more interesting again here, where people are making like 10x's there pretty easily. So you just need a good story and good someone, like a bunch of people to kill it on one collection, then everyone just like dives back in, I think.
Yeah, so I guess I want to say discipline to what we said maybe in a few months ago. Like we said that NFTs would be one of the final things to rally in this market, and that kind of has happened. They've obviously rallied after everything else. Do you think that is a do you think it's more of a Pengu trade in that people are getting super bullish after REKT did well and Milady's launched a coin which did well, and now Pengu's is obviously launching a coin which people are talking about could be into the multiple billions. Do you think it's that, or do you think it's another sign that we're like kind of in the final, like this could be a bit of a mini top? Like, do you think this is a top signal, or do you think this is just a isolated coins thing?
I think NFTs were doing well before Pengu was even announced, and after getting announced, obviously Penguins went up quite a lot, and then I think people started putting capital into the other projects that maybe bring tokens. So the other thing to mention is like, yeah, maybe now NFTs are finally rallying after not rallying for a while, but that's just on Ethereum, right? If you consider, I mean, ordinals technically aren't NFTs, but it's obviously a very similar market, and ordinals have had an amazing run for the last 12 months, for the last 24 months, actually. So I don't know, like I think we're getting, I don't think we're like at the top, but we're definitely getting closer to it. But I don't know, something just tells me that like it's not going to be the same where we have a crazy NFT run post this cycle, which ends up being the top. And then, because remember last time also like stuff kept going lower, but NFTs kept going higher for a while, like in 2022. But I just feel like NFTs in 21, 22 were just this like brand new thing, and people really thought they were going to change the world. And that's why it was sticky for so long. And I think that feeling has now washed over. So you don't have that same kind of new, fresh feel about NFTs. So based on that, I think NFTs doing well could be towards the end of the cycle, but I don't think we're going to have that like the same crazy run as last time. I think some NFTs will do really well, like the X copy, all the art stuff is already doing really well. Some of the blue chip profile picture projects I think will do really well, but I just don't think we'll see the levels that we saw in 21.
Do you think that the analogy then would be the top will really be when like these AI coins start doing really well and the market starts dipping, and then it's kind of it's kind of going to be it, because that's what it really was like towards the top. I think in what was that, December 2021, January 2022, that sort of time.
Yeah, that's about right, I think. Yeah.
Okay. The only other things I think we should talk about is just kind of what's been going on in the DeFi space a little bit. There was some news out this week that Trump bought Aave, um, Chainlink, and ETH, which also led to a rally in all three coins. It feels as though DeFi has had a good week. It might continue to have a good week, just good period here, just on the renewed hope that Trump is going to enact or push through some pretty positive DeFi regulation, which I think is pretty good if they're buying like Aave token. Those coins are all up 40 to 50% on the week, which is quite a big gain. And then secondly, Hyperliquid. Have you looked at Hyperliquid? This has been one of the best performers so far. This was an airdrop of a perp dex called Hyperliquid, which there's been a few perp dexes before. There's DYDX, there's GMX, Jupiter has a perp dex. And Hyperliquid took no VC money. It is now trading an FDV of 18 billion, which easily puts it in the top coins here, kind of comparable to some of the L1s. People are saying that they think this thing can go to like 100 billion. At the moment, they're making millions of dollars a day in fees, and there is some flywheel where they're buying back the token. There's some talk about staking in the future, but do you think Hyperliquid is also one of the trades of this cycle? It feels as though people are getting very, very bullish, even at a high FDV.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about DeFi being something to look at as a resurgence trade, and as we all know, like sometimes new tokens do better than old bonds. And I think just the mind share on this is every big crypto Twitter account was farming on Hyperliquid, is talking about Hyperliquid. They've all made a ton of money on it. Like the mind share on it really is second to none in terms of coins. And, just the narrative of like airdropping the entire thing to your community versus doing the whole VC thing is a really powerful one. It really gets people on your side. So I think, these numbers are crazy. Like the volume levels are crazy. They're obviously printing on fees. It's almost what Friendtech did. Like almost Friendtech didn't quite pull it off. But yeah, I think this thing can keep going. I think it's also, if you're talking about normies and retail coming in, it's really easy to understand and to explain. The business model makes sense. Yeah, I think it can keep going. I'm just it's another one where like, oh, why wasn't I just doing trades on Hyperliquid to farm this thing? You know what I mean? Especially, you do quite a lot of perp trading. Like it would have been.
I do quite a lot of perp trading. I generally trade on Binance, but yeah, I should have done more. Before, I've just found slippage really bad, but Hyperliquid is seeing huge volumes. And you're right in that all the major traders, a lot of vocal CT traders have farmed this, and they seem pretty loyal to it. And it's a very high FDV, but it's actually not that big a current market cap. And a lot of those tokens are seemingly locked up by people who think it's going to go a lot higher. So it may be my top pick in the DeFi space right now. Even with these other, let's say older or like first gen DeFi coins, I agree with what you just said. A newer coin can actually run and with a pretty powerful narrative. So that will probably be my top DeFi pick at the moment. Okay, those are the main things that happened this week. Should we go into questions potentially?
Yeah, let's do questions. Before we do, we just want to showcase some more pro crypto content on Real Vision. We had Jamie Coots do a deep dive into the crypto and AI sector earlier this week. He spoke with Pondering Jurian from Delphi, an expert in the space. Pretty interesting discussion about infrastructure, the agentic economy, and scaling, and more. So if you have a pro crypto subscription on Real Vision, please check it out. Head over to realvision.com to sign up. Let's move on to questions. This is from Just Trust Me Bro on YouTube. The diners moved for 3 reasons. Lindy effect, no VCs. CT is consensus. People stopped reading white papers and followed KOLs and airdrops. What do you think?
I think that's a very good point. Like following mindshare, I think can be quite a dangerous tactic because it often points to like over-owned coins. At the same time, I would say that the XRP one is the one that shocked me really the most. Like this wasn't a pump from a really low market cap. This is now flipped Solana and flipped the FTV of it by about 2x. Like this is a massive coin now. So to get it up that high in an area where not many people are using XRP, although they are meant to be having a stable coin come out relatively soon. It does seem that definitely took me by surprise. But there's something to be said there about buying the coins which are not like having your own thesis around them and potentially owning coins which other people are not talking about. That can be very dangerous as a narrative at the same time. But that's how those coins moved as strongly as they did. Like, no, they were very underloved. And then I think generally when retail came back, they found those the easiest to pump versus some of the other coins. So once they started moving, they realized that, no one really owned these and you can really pump them very, very quickly.
I think that's right. I think also CT is very consensus, and at the end of the day, something that no one owns is obviously the thing that's going to pump. So I think that description really makes sense as to why it rallied. It makes you wonder if there's anything else out there that can do the same. Mario on the Real Vision website, thoughts on the Hawk Tour rug pull?
I mean, I don't really have a lot of views on that, but yeah, basically Haley Welsh, who's that girl from the meme, she released a meme coin. It was essentially a scam. No one's seen her since. The thing is, like, it's very difficult to work out with these celebrities that have come in, like whether their intention is for it to not go well, or if not. It felt as though potentially she obviously got advised by people who maybe took advantage of the situation, which was so predictable. It's unbelievable for like people who've been here for many years. This happens all the time with celebrities. They come in and they often get advised by a team of like token launchers, professional token launchers, which really just means they're gonna make a lot of money out of you. It's going basically to zero right now. It was originally at one point it was at 200 million, and then seemingly people close to the deployer wallet or connected to the insider team were selling. She claimed that nobody sold. I don't know if you believe her or not, but either way, it feels as though some people have taken advantage of that situation.
Yeah, it's a tough one for her, I think, because someone has obviously done this for her and advised her on it, and I think she's obviously been like, how do I monetize like what I'm doing here? And someone's like, hey, you can go into crypto, launch a token and make all this money. But like, I think she had like a 6 or 12 month cliff with like a 2-year vest or something like that. And apparently the whole team had that as well. But it's pretty clear that just like, people running the project have sniped it, monetized it, and now sort of left her high and dry. And I think there's all sorts of things that they did wrong here. Like they had a pre-sale, they had a SAFT, and I think if you have a SAFT in the US, it counts. It's a security, so you need to have, as a private placement, you need to have a 12-month cliff before people can, sell their tokens or trade their tokens. And I think they had like an instant like T0 token release. So like all the investors, they had like pre-sale investors, and all of them just like made a quick 10x on it or whatever it was and just dumped the token as well. So
yeah.
The whole thing was just like doomed to fail from the start. It comes as no surprise, I think. It just amazes me that people go out there and still do it. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, it really comes as no surprises. Paul from the Real Vision website. Hey guys, any thoughts on Link?
Well, I had a good week because Trump bought it. I don't know. I don't know if you'd call that a dino coin. It felt like Link.
I would, yeah. I'd put it in that same bucket.
It could pump. The issue about Link is it's had a few pumps over the years, and each one of them has been smashed lower by the foundation. I guess it does have like a cult community around it, but it doesn't have the same sort of cult community around it as like XRP or Cardano, right? It's not like you do hear about
Marines.
You do hear about them, but it's not like they're in your they are not in like the comments.
They're not in your DMs.
Yeah, they're not like shouting it at you. So I feel as though it is going to be a very important piece of DeFi infrastructure link. Clearly, it's an oracle, which means it obviously basically takes data from outside the blockchain and puts it on chain, or facilitates cross chain and that sort of stuff. It's the token has always been a bit of a question, like why it's needed. I mean, if we're gonna have an altcoin cycle, it wouldn't be my first pick, but it could still do well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think so too. I think it can do well, but I would put it in the Dino coin category, I think, in my opinion. Have you looked at Mina protocol? Do you have any thoughts on the ZK narrative having a run?
I haven't looked at Mina protocol. Lightest blockchain to secure dApps. I haven't looked at this, so I don't know if I'll be useful.
Yeah, me neither. What about ZK? What do you think about that?
Like the ZK narrative?
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't look very excited.
Well, it depends. In ZK, do you mean like ZK rollups or?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Or like privacy chains that we're talking about here?
No, I'm assuming ZK rollups.
Well, I think it's more like privacy, having looked at it. Some of those privacy style coins have done very well. So because of the US government lost a case against Fireblocks recently. Sorry, not Fireblocks. Tornado Cash. And that's meant that a lot of these coins, which are based around privacy, have really rallied, having been delisted on many of the exchanges. So if it's based around that and it's more of a privacy style blockchain, then I think that those keep on bouncing back to hit all-time highs. So not all-time highs, but bouncing back to hit new local highs, let's say. So it could have a strong narrative on the back of that. It feels as though Trump and that administration is not going to go after crypto. There's going to have to be a very, very high bar for them to go after stuff. They're putting in charge of the SEC and in charge of the CFTC people that have literally worked at crypto companies. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very, very high bar to come after people.
Okay, next question from Francesca on the Real Vision website. Between ETH, SUI, Bitcoin, and Sol, what's the order of preference?
ETH, Bitcoin, SUI, Sol. I mean, for the next couple of months, I think ETH would probably be my number one. Then SUI, then Bitcoin, then Sol.
I think I agree with you. Just wondering if I would swap Bitcoin and Sol, but I think given all the big unlocks for Sol in January, who knows? Maybe they start to get priced in. I'm not really sure, but
yeah, maybe Sol's better. Like if we think there's going to be an altcoin cycle, it is still tough to imagine that Sol doesn't outperform Bitcoin.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the end of the questions. So that brings us to a close. Markets have moved higher during the course of this show, so the good fortune is still back above 101k on Bitcoin. Yeah. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. That was REKT Vision. Quick question for everyone listening: if you're watching this stream on YouTube or on X, please feel free to comment. What's your crypto wish for Santa? Let us know which of your bags you really hope hits new highs for Christmas. Next week we'll be doing the drinks with session, so it'll be an exclusive AMA for Real Vision Crypto subscribers. If you have not yet subscribed, you can sign up at realvision.com/RVC. Thanks again for watching. We'll be back on again at the same time next week, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 4:30 p.m. UK time. And thanks everyone for listening. Have a great weekend.
So within this, we have parties. You can choose the VIP track, and then you might be on a boat party and you're doing something else and going for a dinner there, or meeting people in different venues and bars. So there's lots going on. It's like a mad treasure hunt. I like the idea of just hanging out with you guys, drinking a rum or a glass of champagne and putting the world to rights and just really celebrating you as our members and our community. And it's a thank you for that as well. It'll be an incredible event. Listen, get your tickets quick before they sell out. This is the event you've been waiting for. Come and join us for the crypto gathering. We will have an absolute blast.